So good morning again, everyone. Thank you so much for staying. We will try to provide enough information, but also not take forever, and so that we might actually get outside while the sun is still shining. They talked about clouds coming in, but it looks like we're good right now. So let us just begin with a moment of prayer. Holy One, you gather us together to be church, and as many uniquenesses that those things called church can have, we seek to have at our core your vision of healing and love. We ask that you be with us now as we seek to learn more about what you are up to in this, the First Congregational Church of Oshkosh. Be with us now and always, we pray. Amen. So, some of you know a lot about how we're organized. Some of you may know very little. So just a quick overview. We are a congregational church. We are a congregation within the United Church of Christ. We also are a congregation in the National Association of Christian Congregational Churches. What that means that we are a congregational church within larger bodies is that we are, as a congregation, autonomous. We are also at the same time in covenant with the other congregations in each of those denominations and with the larger church itself. And so the autonomy that we have, I do like several writers have talked about it as it's not freedom from relationship, it's not freedom from obligation, it is freedom for us to discover who it is uniquely that God calls this congregation to do. Another thing it means that this is a congregational church is that the authority to set the church's course lies in the congregation itself. Certainly, through the bylaws and constitution, the church council in particular and other ministry groups have been authorized to act on behalf of the congregation. But as if you were part of the annual meeting at the end of last month, you know that a significant decision such as deciding how to use and put to ministry the generous bequest from Nancy Norgard, that decision came before the congregation. Likewise, the decision to call or to fire, I hope not, but to call or fire your minister is in the congregation's hands. It's a very important difference to remember, difference between this church and, for instance, the Methodist Church and certainly the Catholic Church. Those churches are organized in a more hierarchical fashion. We are a congregational church, so the authority to set the course lies with the congregation. We'll hear more about the very specific ministry groups that are charged with the ministry of the church and the church council overseeing. And the staff, which you'll also get introduced to those of us who are here, make sure you know, our job is to support the ministries of this church. Certainly as pastor and preacher, I've been given the ability to lead worship and preach as to the best of my ability. I understand the Holy Spirit calling, but otherwise the staff is here to support the work of the church. The church is not meant to support the staff, although we really appreciate your support. Don't get me wrong, but it is our calling to serve this congregation. And now I invite Carrie Wanish, our office administrator, to introduce you to Realm. You may be very familiar with Realm. You may wonder what in the world that how many letters that 5-letter word means and why we keep talking about it. So Carrie will give us an overview that I hope will help those of you unfamiliar with it. The what? The who? Oh, the mic, right. The handheld what?
Good morning. So my plan today is just to show you some things on Realm that may be a reminder to you, or it may be brand new information. My idea originally was just to focus on, things for ministry groups and how they can help their groups flourish, but I see there are individuals here that aren't necessarily a part of a ministry group, so we may share a little bit more. I created just a fake profile so I can just show you how to get going with Realm with an account and log in. As I'm doing this, as I'm kind of navigating through Realm, please feel free to just raise your hand, interrupt me, ask questions. This is for you, okay? I want everybody to be able to get as much as we can from Realm because it really is a great resource. Kelly.
What is Realm?
So Realm is our online system that we can use as a congregation, as members of ministry groups, to communicate with each other, to advocate other groups, to advertise events that we have going on. Realm is a means of supporting one another, supporting our groups, supporting events, supporting the community. You can set up your pledges in Realm. You can pay all your contributions in Realm. Realm, Kelly, to answer your question, Realm is everything. Realm is awesome. Realm, I'm learning Realm. I'm new to this, but every day I find out that, there's something that we can use it for that would really help us flourish. So let me get logged in here.
This is the first thing you need to know about Realm is you have to sign in. So you
Yes,
need an
you have
account,
to sign
and if
in.
you don't have one, Carrie's the person to ask. If you don't have an account in Realm yet, Carrie's the person to help you out with that.
Yes. What's that? Yes, thank you. Yes. Very good question. See, Joe had me set up here ahead of time just to click on a Realm link. But when you go in the address bar, you're going to want to start typing on Realm. Very good question. Thank you for asking that, whoever did. So you're going to type in ONREALM, on Realm, and then it should pop up for you. Okay, so I don't know if you can see on the screen, but up top here, do you see that little arrow moving around up top on the screen? That's where you would go and click in the address bar and then type ONREALM. Chances are it will pop up for you, but if it doesn't, you're going to hit .org, so onrealm.org. Then that will bring you to a screen where you can either sign in or create a login. I already created a login for today, so I'm going to go ahead and sign in. But if you do not have an account on Realm yet, you will want to hit Create Login, and you'll click on that. to create a login on Realm, you do need a valid email address. So if you don't have an email address yet, that's going to be your first step. You'll want to create an email account. So another little tricky thing about signing into Realm, once you put your password in, most websites you can just hit enter and then it'll log you in. Realm is a little different that way. You have to make sure that you either click on sign in or tab so that the sign in is highlighted. Can you hold this for me, Jill? Thank you. Now I created this, I just created a fake profile last night, so I'm not that familiar with the password, and apparently I typed it in incorrectly, so give me one moment.
This should make everybody feel better, right? It's not always intuitive.
All right, and then I'm going to make sure that I physically go click on that sign in, because if I just hit enter, it won't sign me in. I don't want to save the password right now because this is Joe's computer. All right. So the first thing you'll see is news. This page, Joe, are you able to, can we move it so that we can see the left side? No, okay. So this page is going to show you all of the groups that you're a part of. This page will show you if anybody made an event, it'll show you that that event is up there. If anybody posts a really important notice, that will show up in there. The last thing I did from the office was a letter from our Appreciative Inquiry Communications Director, just to kind of give you a heads up on where we're at with that, and to remind you of the March 5th workshop. All right, Joe, do just the opposite, please, so that we can see the left side. So if you click on groups, and that's on the left-hand side here, those of you that are members of ministry groups, they should be listed. I made this person a member of Green Team and Music, just because that's what I am. But you all should be in the group FCC Members and Friends. Once you have your WELM profile set up, and if you are not a member of FCC Members and Friends, please let me know, let the office know. We'll make sure that we get you in there. Within FCC Members and Friends, if you go to Files, you will see you can click on our directory. And most of you will have, a hard copy, but let's say you can't find it. You can just access our directory online. And this is nice because, everybody's phone number and email address that wants to share is in there. You can also communicate through Realm by using the message system. Joe, can you close that for me and give me back? Thank you.
Go away.
If you happen to go to one of your ministry groups that you're in, you can see all of your minutes are posted each month. You can contact other ministry groups through here. If you need to get a purchase approved, you can go to the files within your group, and you can see that there is a first Congregational Church. I need to click up there, Joe. There is a First Congregational Church voucher that you can click on. And then you can print that off at home, fill it out, and if you don't want to come into church, you can just have it filled out, take a picture, and you can email it to the office. We can get that started for you. What's that? Oh, okay.
Beautiful.
Kay, do you have a question?
Yeah, well, we're waiting for it to catch up.
If you're not a member of any of those groups, can you see what's going on? Can you click on it and find out what the group is doing, or is that just for the group?
Good question, Kay. So if you're not a member of a ministry group, you can see a lot from the FCC Family and Friends group, which everybody in here should be a member of that. If you're not, let us know. We'll get you in there. From that group, you can do quite a bit. You can send messages to other ministry groups. You can send messages to everybody in the congregation. You can, hold on, sorry about this. What's that? You can read minutes. Yeah, we were posting council minutes on that page, but now we decided just to post them right on our webpage. So council minutes were posted on FCC Family and Friends, but we stopped that because we decided just to post it right on our FCC webpage. But if you wanted to see those and if you want them posted there, you can let the office know and we can definitely bring that back. Yes? So being in the directory, like physically yourself being in the directory, is not the same as being in the FCC group. The FCC Family and Friends group is a group that was created just to enhance communication within Realm. Yeah. Good question. So as things change, I've been updating the hard copy, but I'm glad you asked that because that just reminded me I need to update that one as well. Because when I posted that last, I don't think I have all of the updates on there. Do we have it back, Joe? We do. Good. Thank you. All right. So then something else I wanted to show you. If you go to the left-hand side, there is a column called Giving. This is really slick. So if you go to Give, and this is just a fake profile, so you're not going to see anybody's stuff here. But when you go to Give, this is how you can support other ministry groups. This is how you can give contributions to events going on. This is how you can sponsor flowers. This is an amazing tool. So you can also obviously give your contribution this way too. So you have the choice of giving once or giving multiple times. Some people choose to give multiple times, and that's how they just do their monthly contribution or their weekly contribution. But I'm just going to say I want to give once, and I happen to know that the ABC Scarves program right now is flourishing. We have a lot of people sewing and knitting scarves, and we're out of yarn. I want to support that. So I can just start typing ABC, and ABC Scarves will pop up. I want to help out. I want to help provide some yarn for this program. I'm going to give once. I want to give $20 to help purchase with yarn. And then you click continue. And then it's going to ask you your information. Your choices are to pay directly from your checking account or savings account or to use a debit card. You can also set up your pledge from giving. If this Miss Sari individual had been giving to any of the ministries that we have or gave any contributions, those would show up here. You can request statements. You can actually print your own statements from home. There's a little printer icon here. You can do that. Any questions with this? Okay. I guess the biggest thing I think that would be most helpful with Realm is the communication piece of it. It is very helpful to be part of the FCC member and friends group. So once you get your account created, make sure you are part of the FCC members and friends group, and you'll see that on the left-hand side. If you don't, just let me know. We'll get you added, because then you'll see all of the posted, events. You can share things. You can start a photo post. You can create your own event. So if you are a part of a ministry group and you want to advertise, hey, come to our meeting. Green Team has some amazing stuff going on right now. We're going to share with everybody how we are a part of TerraCycle and we're working towards zero waste. This is a great way, to use that to invite others. Any questions? All right, with that, I'll hand it off.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you so much. Question? Sue.
That's a good question. So some of us can get contacted via email through Realm. So you don't have to have a Realm account set up, but you do need to have email notifications set up. So if that's the thing, and if you want to be notified through your email about stuff going on in Realm, let the office know and we'll get that set up for you. Any other questions?
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you very much. Next up, a more detailed conversation about our ministry and interest groups. Kelly.
So originally, when we conceived of this particular meeting, we were originally thinking that we would have ministry groups and interest groups get together and actually see each other's faces so that we could see what other groups besides the ones that we were already on were doing and who those people are. Especially over COVID, we don't see each other that often, and so it's kind of hard to know what is going on in those different groups, right? Unless you're a member of the staff who has to know what all the groups are doing when, and particularly where and when they're meeting. I don't know where Carrie went, but yeah. So as Nancy was saying, the work of the church, the ministry of the church really is done through our ministry groups. It's done by the whole congregation, but you don't want the whole congregation getting together every week and trying to do the business of the church. That'd be like herding cats. Nothing would get done, right? And so in our church, we have different groups, ministry groups, that take care of the church's business and the ministry of the group, depending on whatever their areas of interest are and what needs to be done. In our church right now, we have the ministry groups are the ones that are dictated by the bylaws of the church. That means the congregation decided we needed these groups to be there all the time because they take care of really important parts of the church. And no matter who is currently in the congregation or who's serving on those teams need to be there. Currently, that's personnel. Do we have anybody from personnel here today? Anybody who's been on personnel before? So you can see that we have lots of people who have served on this, and what personnel basically does is you take care of staff. right? What staffing does the church need, and what do the people who are on staff need from the church? That's basically what personnel does. I think you guys meet once a month usually to talk about that, and there are always changes going on with personnel. For example, Nancy's going on sabbatical, so we need to figure out who's going to be, which pastor is going to be called to be our sabbatical pastor. Those kinds of things come up. We've had a lot of changeover on staff in the last year and a half, and so personnel's been pretty busy, but sometimes everything's going smoothly and they don't have to meet all that often. Then it's mostly how do we support the staff that we have. Finance is a big one. We have anybody from finance in the? Okay, so Art and Jim. I think there are, on the FCC, on that green laminated sheet, I think I have listed all of the members of these groups. So finance pretty much takes care of the bills and figures out where all of the giving that Carrie just talked about needs to go. I don't know much about that, so if there's somebody who would like to talk more about that, if there are questions, I would field them to that particular group. Am I getting everything? Okay. Buildings and grounds, they are responsible for everything that happens with the building and the area around it. So, for example, we have this beautiful new platform that was built to house our tech system, which we didn't need 2 years ago, and now we do. I believe they're going to be instrumental in getting some railings put in. So anything that happens on the inside of the church with the building, the remodels and all of that, anything that happens outside, we're getting, there's going to be a native plantings little garden. All of that is buildings and grounds. The plants get taken care of by buildings and grounds. Children and youth, that is, do we have anybody from children and youth here? They work really closely with Liz. I don't know, Liz, do you want to talk a little bit about children and youth, or do you want me to field it? Go ahead.
Okay, so children and youth covers things like church school, anything that's related to faith formation. When we don't have COVID restrictions, we've done youth groups. We have a youth service trip. So that the broad umbrella is anything that has to do with our kids. And so we have, right now we have church school. Right now it's being held before church. The middle and high school kids are meeting online and in person. They have that option from 9 o'clock to 9:50. Art and Kathy are our teachers extraordinaire for that group. And the little ones, so it's 4K through 5th grade, are meeting. They also have the option of meeting online and in person. By and large, it's all online, and they meet from 9:20 to 9:50. Supposedly, sometimes the conversation gets going, and it goes a little longer, but that's okay, because that's the beauty of being with little kids. When we are able to offer church school in person more effectively, the little ones will meet from about 10:10 to about 10:40, because they will come for the beginning of worship. They will leave, have their church school come back for the offering and the ending prayers of worship. And at the same time, there will be childcare. We still have childcare offered right now for, right now I would say birth through 5 years old. We have little ones that are coming to church and they would prefer to have childcare, parents prefer to have childcare. Generally during the worship, when we're offering church school during worship, it'll be the birth to 3-year-olds, because once a child is in 4K, they're invited to join the elementary, our little ones for church school. We have a one-room sort of church school for the little ones and one room for the older kids, which is kind of cool because they learn from each other and have great conversations. And then this summer we have, finally, we're hoping, knock on wood, our mission trip to Nashville. We've postponed it twice because of COVID, and things are looking much more hopeful, so We have 5 youth that are signed up to go and 2 adults. And we are partnering with the UCC Church in Neenah. So we will have a total of 18 youth and adults from the Neenah Oshkosh churches going to Nashville this summer for a week of service.
So I'll talk a little bit both about the worship and music ministry groups. They're pretty straightforward in terms of their titles, tell you what they focus on. Certainly until 2 years ago, the worship ministry group's focus was what we do physically here in this space, but over the last 2 years, we've had to continue to engage the question of how can we be both in person and online, and how those two ways of being church and gathering for church can complement one another. Certainly, any ideas you have for things you would like us to do in worship, the worship ministry group members would be good folks to reach out to, as well as, of course, to me. The music ministry group has a similar role with the music for Sunday morning, but it also has a broader role for the music that the church offers to the community at large. Again, if you've got ideas, suggestions, music ministry group members are listed on your handy-dandy FAQ, the back of your FAQ, beautifully laminated. Thank you, Kelly. You can contact any of those members. And let me skip to benevolence. Benevolence ministry group has the charge to use the funds that the church has set aside for work in the community and in the larger world. They just had their first meeting of this year just a couple weeks ago or last week, and they are folks who are engaged with the question of where can the funds, the support that this church is able to offer, where can it make the most difference, particularly in Oshkosh. This church has been generous with its resources with the community, and it has been a joy to watch benevolence kind of wrestle with where should the money and where should the support go. And I'll let Kelly talk about church growth and engagement. Not let her.
So church growth and engagement started out as more of a marketing sort of group. Correct me if I'm wrong, Cynthia. We really wanted to be able to reach out to the community and say, hey, here we are, and tell the community what we're doing. It's grown, and it's now encompasses what used to be our fellowship group, which was responsible for making sure that we had things after church for fellowship. We had cookies, we had opportunities for social engagement and for working together to do the work of the church and to feel church together outside of worship. Now it does that, plus is largely responsible for any of the events that the church puts on, that it's an all-congregation event. So, for example, we had the picnic in the parking lot in the fall, and that was something that Church Growth and Engagement conceived of and did. They reach out to other membership groups and say, hey, how can we work together to serve the needs of the community, or church community, outside of worship, in the many ways and shapes and forms that might take. Harvest Sunday is something that they're involved in. Easter breakfast, if we're ever going to be able to do that again, is something that they're involved with. So if you have ideas, anything that you would like to see us do that's a larger event, that's probably the group to bring it to, because they're the ones with the resources and have made the commitment to trying to make those things happen. Where are we? Church growth. You already talked about benevolence. Social justice. Is there anybody from social justice? That's our biggest group right now. I don't know if you'd like to talk about social justice at all, or if you want me to take that. Go ahead. As I understand it, social justice is responsible for making sure that our ministry reaches out to groups that are marginalized and that we are always working toward getting involved in the community in ways that, that promote social justice. And that can be racial inequities, it can be poverty, it can be, I know that they're very involved in welcoming the refugees. What else are they doing that year? We have the community garden. I'm not sure what else is going on with social justice, but I know that that's what they're supposed to be doing, and that's what they do when they meet. They talk about how can this church be more involved in the community in matters of social justice.
Yes, speakers.
They bring speakers. It's a part of it is bringing speakers in. So they might work with lifelong learning sometimes. Val, does social justice work with lifelong learning sometimes to bring people in? No, but they could. Yeah, they could. Speaking of lifelong learning, this used to be adult ed. Those of you who might remember adult ed, they put together programming that serves the educational needs of people who are not in 4K through 5th grade. For those younger people who are in Sunday school but want more opportunities to talk about learning about spirituality. They also bring in lots of speakers. They work with other ministry groups to support their work as well. For example, this October they worked with the Green Team to bring in speakers for Earth Month and talk about creation care. So they have a program pretty much every week except for when there's something else going on. And today, this is what's going on. I don't know, Jim, did you want to talk about that at all? And all of these, I can't because I don't know what he said. Do you want to take the? Nancy's going to bring you the mic, Jim, because we're having a hard time hearing you. And all of these ministry groups are totally hoping that anybody who is not on the ministry group will come to them if they have ideas and things that they want the ministry group to get involved with. That's how we do stuff here.
On that note, let me put in a plug that we would be very glad to have some new members and new ideas on the Lifelong Learning Committee. At the moment, it's only Aaron Caprillion, Paula Viard, and myself. I was saying that we have some plans for March and April, probably extending into May, which will not, well, the ones for March didn't make it into the tidings, so they will be in the member bridge.
Thank you, Jim. And then, in addition to the ministry groups, which are officially recognized in the bylaws and are always there unless we make a bylaw change, which is a long process, we also have the flexibility to have interest groups. And those groups are formed when people, congregants, feel strongly called by Spirit to more specifically focus on a particular area. For example, the Green Team. This came out of a really strong need from several congregants to get more involved with creation care. That's how we got our solar panels. That was their first project. And now, as Carrie was saying, they're involved in so many things, like Adopt a Highway, and they get involved with the Fox Wolf Watershed project that's every spring. And TerraCycle, you've seen the box out in the lobby trying to recycle pretty much everything we can recycle. That was just a group of congregants that got together and said, hey, we really need this group. Same thing with Animal Ministries. It's just a group of concerned congregants who got together and said, hey, we want to take care of animals. We really feel called by Spirit to do something to better the lives of animals in our congregation, in our community. Stephen Ministry, this is a group that provides spiritual support for congregants and possibly other people who aren't even in the church when they really need that. And there are several members of Stephen Ministry with us today.
Cynthia, Sue, would you like to say anything about Stephen Ministry? Cynthia's saying no, but Sue hasn't. No. No? Not really. Okay.
Okay.
How about Women's Fellowship? Karen? Tell the assembled folks a little bit about what Women's Fellowship is.
Women's Fellowship has been here almost as long as the church. And it was basically started because the men didn't want the women to have any money and say anything. So the women said, okay, fine, we'll do our own thing. And they have provided tons of things for this church, including the piano, the organ, et cetera, et cetera. So basically, we have a board that makes the decisions, but all of the women of the church are part of that group. It's been very hard recently to do anything because of the COVID, but we've continued to do things like the reverse Advent calendar, which has been the biggest thing we've done lately. Basically, we work with Nancy, see if there's anything that she wants us to help with. We've made donations outside of the church. Sleep in Heavenly Peace is one of the things we've given to just recently, which makes beds for kids. And I think, is it Dick is part of that group that makes beds, Dick Oschlager? So, we try and do things not just here at the church and say, okay, what do you need money for? But also to do things outside of our church so that we can recognize that as well. And at any time, if anybody wants to attend the meetings, they are more than welcome. We do have them during the day. We don't meet at night. Don't like to come out at night. It's dark. It's dark. We don't like the dark. So you're welcome to attend. You can't vote, but you can certainly attend and voice any opinions. We're happy to have you there. When we have had things like funerals or Nancy needs us, we're there. And we will call on anybody, and anybody who wants to come and help us do those things, please let me know. We are more than happy to have you come and help us. And First Tuesdays we work on as well, which hopefully we'll get back in April. So if you're willing to help work, please call me. My name's on there. My phone number's on there. If we don't answer, because I do screen phone calls, please leave your name and your number.
What's next?
This is just quick. What do you do if you're on a ministry team? You hold meetings, right? Somebody takes minutes. You share drafts of those minutes. They get sent to Carrie in the office, the drafts, right? And they get put in Realm, hopefully. Carrie, do you put them in Realm, or?
I put them in Realm. We do have a couple of ministry groups that do it on their own, like Catholic, we usually go with that. But then we also print out our copy and they're available on the parent website.
Which is a way, Kay, that you can figure out, you can see what they're. Oh, they're in the they're in the binder in the lobby, and they're the minutes from all of the groups. Yes, a physical copy. Yeah. And then, of course, at the next meeting, they get approved. So really, we're dealing with drafts. And then the approved ones get put into our archives, I assume, right? Carrie? In Realm? Okay. Okay. You communicate what you're doing with the congregation and staff, usually through tidings. Ministry groups will put notices in our newsletter, or if you want Member Bridge goes out twice a week. Tuesday is usually where we will update in things that are happening with ministry groups. Thursday we usually like to talk about what's coming up on the weekend. They authorize expenditures. They oversee the budget. They each has a budget. They submit budget requests in the fall, and they write and submit the year-in review paragraph for the annual meeting. That's the responsibilities of ministry groups. If you're on a ministry group and you haven't met yet, the next steps for you, since we just got new ministry teams, ministry groups at the end of January, You should meet your church council liaison. There's a liaison from the church council to each of the ministry groups. So do we have them for all of them yet?
They were posted in Member Bridge, and I can't remember, Toby, if they were also, we've not put them in tidings, but we'll continue to have that available through Member Bridge.
And the liaison goes to the membership, to the ministry group meetings, and so that they can report back to the council what they're doing. Sometimes something that a ministry group wants to do needs approval, not necessarily approval, but the church council needs to know what's going on, and there are other groups that they need to work with in order to make that happen. For example, the Green Team wanted to do a native planting. Well, they need to work with Buildings and Grounds in order to do that, and so there needs to be a way to communicate. And the liaisons are the best way to do that, although there are memberships, ministry groups should feel free to communicate with each other all the time outside of that. Hopefully you will come to the Dream Summit next Saturday if you're in a ministry group, because that's really where we're going to find out where the congregation is at, and it's the ministry group's responsibility to help the congregation realize its vision. If you haven't scheduled a first meeting, you should do that, because you have to approve the minutes from the last meeting. That's important. And submit those to Realm. See what you want to do. Like, for example, CG&E, Church Growth and Engagement, they decided 2 weeks ago, heck, we should probably meet before the March 5th meeting just to figure out what we were doing last year. So it's a really good idea if you're on a ministry team, especially if you're a facilitator, to get that moving. And consider sharing your meeting highlights to the congregation via Member Bridge. And we suggest that you do that every time you have a meeting. It's just a suggestion. But that's another way that people like Kay, who maybe aren't a member of any ministry group and so don't have access to the minutes on Realm, could actually see what's being done in those ministry groups, because that's how we do the business of the church. Do you want to talk about the church council?
Question?
Kay, did you have a question?
I just wanted to say that reading the minutes is a good way for a person not familiar with what a group does to find out. I mean, you told us what they're supposed to do, but here you can do what they actually do, and maybe see where you'd like to jump in.
Absolutely.
And for those of you who don't know, the Harrington chest, it's just the big honker thing here at the end of the foyer. And Carrie does keep the binder updated. Ann. New member development became church growth and engagement, so that is still part of their responsibility. Yeah. So that was adult ed changed into wanted a new name, and so they're now lifelong learning. And new member development did the same. Yeah, they're now church growth and engagement. Any other questions? So just Joyce, yes. Where the library goes? It has its own budget. I think it would simply depend on what the nature of the question was that the library or the librarians were wanting to ask. It does not have any specific oversight, and in that sense, then it would be the church council has the oversight. In terms of where things could be in the building, Buildings and Grounds is the lead on that kind of decision making. But for as in terms of policy decisions, that would most likely end up, perhaps lifelong learning would take a stab at it, but I think because it's not officially in the bylaws structurally, it probably still is under church council. Any other questions? Speaking of church council, Toby is our moderator. Toby, if you would please rise so people can see you. Cynthia Thorpe is our moderator-elect. Mike Duffy is in warm weather or coming back therefrom today, so he is not with us. And Vanessa Frank, if you would, you're not going to stand up for me. Okay, I get the message. Paula, are you here? Yes, Paula Allen. Sue Coghill. Sarah is not with us this morning. Jeff Pullman-Becker, Dave Ramond, and Kathy Willie is actually at another church this morning. The church council meets monthly. They meet on the second Thursday of the month, and they are, particularly with a governance structure we are still trying out right now, they're really charged with the larger picture, visioning, discerning our mission, and helping us as a congregation have a focus. And so the church council has brought us into the appreciative inquiry process to do that very thing. And our next slide is, and I'm your pastor. I get to be your pastor. What an amazing thing. And Kelly Green, from whom you have heard, is our coordinator for congregational life. Liz Caprellian, from whom you also heard, coordinator for children and youth faith formation. Carrie Wanish has been our office administrator since November, doing a bang-up job. Joanne Peterson is still here. And Joanne has been serving this church for a few decades, shall we say. We are blessed with your presence. Joe Wiedemeyer is at the helm of the AV this morning, the IT. He, on Sunday mornings, is assisted by Talon Booz and Spencer Hadel, or actually, I think at this point, Joe, they're assisting you. They are running. They're running the show on Sunday mornings, and we give great thanks for them. Jean Board-Pyre is now both our building supervisor and our custodian, and Olivia Farrow and Elliot Viard are our child care coordinators. So just a couple more words about the United Church of Christ. As I said, we are part of two different denominations. The United Church of Christ is the more active of our relationships. The National Association of, forget if it's Congregational Christian Churches or Christian Congregational Churches, is a much smaller entity at this time. And when this church was ready to seek a new pastor, the NACCC was not able to bring forth any candidates to be considered. So really at this point, the United Church of Christ is our most active relationship. We relate primarily to the larger church through our Wisconsin conference. The conference, especially in the last 2 years, has made all the difference in the world for so many churches and so many pastors. The resources and support and encouragement that have come out of the Wisconsin Conference have been invaluable and have made ministry in a pandemic possible. We support the conference and the larger church through our contributions to our church's wider mission. OCWM is our initials that get thrown out a whole lot, but it is our church's wider mission. And 65% of our contributions to OCWM basic support stay here in the state and make it possible not only for the churches that are here already to survive and thrive, but also it also makes it possible to look at new church plants and nurturing new communities of faith in the state. And money. How we're funded. Look around. This is how we're funded. We are called as followers of Christ to have at our core certain values, Christian values: generosity, hospitality, humility, love, compassion. And it is through our generosity and absolutely the generosity of those who've come before that this is possible. We do not receive any ongoing financial support from any other organization from the larger church. That makes us a little different from other denominations. We do, Kelly mentioned native plant landscaping. We do on occasion seek and receive grants for specific kinds of ministry here, but we're it. along with the Holy Spirit. So as we continue to invite ourselves, one another into generosity, keep that in mind, that there is no one else who is making this church possible other than the Holy Spirit, the eternal Christ, and the Creator God, and you and me. We've heard a lot about Realm. As Carrie took us through it, it is a place where you can make your pledge of support for the year. You can make make contributions to your pledge, and also provide support for other things. Certainly, the most recently has been the service trip, the youth mission trip. That is also possible to support through Realm. Kelly mentioned in the ministry group discussion, ministry groups are asked to submit budget requests late fall, and those budget requests go to the finance committee that works with them, and it looks at both what the ministry groups are wanting to do and the funds that are required, and also, of course, looks at the pledges that we received and tries to find our way forward, balancing those two things. Ministry groups, not sure how it works. Ministry groups ask for make their budget requests, and when finance has weighed all has arranged all the things on the table, ministry groups hear what their funding for the following year is, and we do both Benevolence Ministry Group through the years has invited us to participate in special offerings, Thanksgiving offering, Christmas offering, Easter offering. Sometimes those are offerings that are part of the United Church of Christ special offerings. Other times they are things like the Warming Shelter or Christine Ann Center. Okay, next slide. Kelly, do you want to talk about what to do with an idea?
So in my position as the coordinator for congregational life, I'm probably the person that hears the most from congregants to say, I want to do this. How do we do this? How can we make this happen? And my answer is always, well, you need to find the correct ministry group, right? And figure out how to go to one of their meetings, which is really pretty easy. You just find out when they're meeting, which should be on the calendar, right? Hopefully facilitators have told Carrie when they're meeting next, and you can just show up at their meeting and make your proposal. Usually ministry groups are totally excited to have you come do that. If you don't want to go to a meeting, find the facilitator, and that's one of the reasons we have that green sheet, the laminated one, that tells you who the facilitator for each one of those groups is. That way you can text them or email them and say, hey, I have this idea. I think it fits under what your ministry group does. How can we talk more about that? That's basically how it works. If you're in a ministry group, oftentimes I'll be at a ministry group meeting as a staff liaison, and they want to do something, but they're not really sure they're allowed. And I'm here to tell you today that, yes, you're allowed. That's what you're supposed to do. That doesn't mean that you can just do your project. You need to figure out, okay, for example, the mural out in the foyer. That was something that CYM, that Children and Youth wanted to do. They talked to Church Growth and Engagement, because that's Radical Welcome, which is under their jurisdiction. They both said, yeah, that'd be great. Let's do that. But then they had to talk to Buildings and Grounds, right? But the ministry groups have their own budget. They don't have to ask anybody's permission to spend that money unless it's a huge expense, in which case they might want to talk to their church liaison, their church council liaison. We work together as a congregation, and the ministry groups are all responsible for their different areas, but we hope they will come together when their projects overlap, and we really hope that they'll reach out to the congregation more often than they have been, so that we know what's going on and so we know what the congregation wants to be doing. I know we have members of Lifelong Learning and Church Growth and Engagement here. Keegan is our facilitator for Church Growth and Engagement. We have 3 people on that ministry group. We could really use some more folks, because that group does a lot of stuff. They're responsible for a lot of things. They have a big budget they need to oversee. So if anybody's interested in that, this would be a really great way for you to get involved with being on a ministry group and sort of branch out from there. So if you have an idea, you can bring it to me, and I can figure out which ministry group you should be talking to. But I encourage you to get to know your ministry groups and know their facilitators and reach out to them personally. You don't have to go through staff to do that. Staff is here to support you and what you want to do. You don't need anybody's permission from staff to do something, except for maybe Nancy. But probably, yeah, usually I'll say, hey, this group wants to do this. What do you think? And Nancy will say, fine. Or I'll say a congregant wants this to happen. We'll send them to this group. That's how it works. So if you have an idea, go to that person. Or if you're worried about going to that person, go to me and I'll set you up. Any questions about that? Because that's our next thing, is if you have questions. And I think that's it. Because we were going to mix and mingle, but we can't because COVID. So.
I want to follow up, repeat, but in a larger context, what Karen Laborde said. Women's Fellowship is always glad to have people help them do what they are doing. That's true of the ministry groups, too. We have said, in essence, the ministry groups are responsible for the ministry and the work of the church. That's true, but that is not intended to mean that the ministry group members are the only ones who are doing those things. For instance, with church growth engagement, now both being new member development and fellowship, serving those roles, it is not on those three people to make sure, once we're able to gather again after worship, to make sure that we have someone that they are not the ones hosting fellowship time every time, but they are coordinating. And we, again, in the same way that we are, our health, our financial health and vitality depends on us, our ministry health and vitality depends on all of us. So when you hear from Church Growth and Engagement or Lifelong Learning or some other ministry group that this is what they're doing and they need help, please know that request is meant for all of us. I don't want you leaving here, those of you who are not on ministry groups, thinking that, oh my heavens, I never want to be on a ministry group because they have to do it all. They are coordinators. They are the focal point for ideas and planning, but the execution of those plans, the living into those ministries, is the work of the entire congregation. Before we go, another chance for questions? Do take a look. Make sure you keep your booklet and your FAQ with you. And if you did not get a new directory, a 2022 directory, please make sure you get one before you leave. And now may the Spirit of the one who calls us into life and love and service be your guide. May the Spirit of love be at the heart of all that you do. And may you know and experience the healing grace of God, now and always. Amen. Thank you for staying. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Joe.
Please talk to